Welcome to another episode of For You to Survive. Today we are going to learn how to process basswood bark in non-peeling season because it's possible, but it's more difficult. You have to take a few more extra steps, but hey, if you want your fire, you got to do what it takes. Stay with me and enjoy the video. Here's a basswood limb. I'm going to try to remove it without any tools. All right, that worked pretty smooth. Once you get a limb removed, it's good to move the branch in a sharp manner. You bend it, and that helps you twist, wind, and take the excess branch off. And I want to break it so I have a split in there. And just remove that. So I'm trying to break it so I have half and half. Now the bark is not always the easiest thing to remove this time of year because peeling season's over. So now I'm starting to get somewhere. There we go. Success. Now I have this branch splitting. Whatever side's thicker, I'm going to pull on that. And I'm going to kind of roll it in my hands. So I'm going to pull on the thickest side. So now I have a piece. It's a decently long piece, but I have wood on it. So I'm going to watch this finger. That's where I'm going to roll it. Picking off any loose bark. I'm rolling it. It's nice and easy. Then what I can do, I can pick it up, break it off, see if there's any more bark attached. So there are some fibers left over. I only want to remove the wood. So that's what I'm doing. So now I got myself some extra bark. So this is a little bark that was attached to the wood, so I didn't lose my bark. So that's how I'm getting strips of bark off. Keep working it, rolling it on the finger, and then next thing you know, you got a decent strip of bark. Not all of it's perfect, but you got a lot of bark. Sometimes you only get pieces like this, but that's how it goes. And if you come to a tough spot with a knot, you just kind of work it little by little. You take your time on this. You work around it. So now it's kind of breaking off, but I'm going to break the bark. I'm going to break the bark so the wood goes up. So I'm actually breaking the wood, not the bark. I'm breaking the wood so it goes up. So if I went the other way, the wood's going to break through the bark, and that's going to ruin the bark. So that's a good thing to know. So now I have a better chance of removing the bark. So there, I recovered the piece. It's a little bit separated, but well, it's still intact. So here's the bark. It's intact, but it's split. That's okay though. It's better than having one piece ripped off. So now I can continue. Sometimes you pick the smallest limbs that look the freshest and most alive. Those can work for me better and give me the most usable bark, but you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes that's not the case. It depends on the health of the tree, actually. If you break the bark, you can remove the outer bark. So that's what you do. You push, you break it, and you push, Then you peel off the outer bark. The outer bark's not going to really provide much strength, but that inner bark, that's where the money is. That's where you're going to find your usable bark. So I'm trying not to rip off the inner bark, but I'm taking my time to remove the outer bark. It takes some time. This is not the ideal time of year, so we accept that. So you can see that the bark is getting cleaner. So pushing down, now this bark will come up and peel off better. I'm gonna go where I bend the bark upwards. I'm trying to bend it so the whole piece of bark is broken. That way I can remove the piece of outer bark in one move. Okay, here's what I mean. This bark is broken, so now I can remove the outer bark. And what I'll do again is use the top of my finger and I'll roll it. And then there's the outer bark removed. And I'm going to do it again. So I'm rolling on this finger. But I'm also pulling the bark a little bit. And you got to go slow. If you get a sticking point, you go slow. Experience will help you get good at this. There we go. Now it's coming. So rolling with this hand, pushing with the other hand. But gentle, you'll get the feel for how much bark comes off. Here's a piece. I'm just going to keep it because it's valuable. So this is coming off nicely. All right. This will help you see what we're dealing with. So this is the outer bark. It has some strength to it, but you're better off removing the outer bark and keeping the inner bark. So these fibers are nice. Depending on what projects you have, you can remove the bark. You can bring it in nice layers, and you can use the size you need for your projects. Here's a little bit extra here, so let's try to remove that. So this is too nice to pull apart. So now we have some nice strips. So that worked. I got way more off a longer, thicker branch than I did off a thinner branch. So that's also good to know. So now it's flexible. I can work them in my hands. Well, I only want to work them one way. I don't want to pull across and break them, but I'll roll the fibers. So now I got a good group of fibers to work with. I'm going to get more because, well, you always tend to need more. I got these fibers, time to soak them. I don't have to soak these long, just long enough for them to stay flexible and retain their moisture, because they are from the tree today, so that should be enough. Here's my damp fibers that were soaked briefly. So what do? Well, I take whatever fibers seem to work for me. I want to show you, in case I can't get long fibers the length of a bowstring, I'm going to peel them. I have these fibers here. Now individually, would it be the length of a bowstring? By the time I tied the knot, by the time I tied it in there, it's probably not enough. So I want to make sure this is longer so I can actually tie it and use it. So let's do that now. What I'm going to do is separate some fibers. So I have Some where I'm going to overlap here, some I'll overlap there. I'll overlap a little bit on the bottom. So I'm basically making this longer. I'm basically making this longer in a very controlled way. So I want to make sure I keep the same thickness. Looks like it needs a little more thickness on the bottom here, so I'll add some here. And I don't exactly like the way this is because there's a knot here, so I'm just going to ignore that one. Add one here. I'll reclaim what I had here. Okay. And I'll add these fibers here. So the new thing is maybe twisting from the middle. I'm going to work my way from the middle and do that single wrap until I get to one end. And this is actually pretty fast. And what I want to do is tie an overhand knot on one end. The part that looks like it's going to be the strongest. If there's loose fibers that thin out or too small, I'm not going to incorporate those. So there may be a little excess lost, but, well, I care about starting a fire, not how good a bowstring looks. So I could technically cut these fibers off because I don't need them. Sometimes you can peel them off, pull them off. So that's possible. And if you make them thin, they're a lot easier to break off. So that's a nice thing to know. So you keep working it. Now I'm going to work the other end. Now that I have the overhand knot, I'm going to put that in a bow. The way I showed before was tie another overhand knot, and that's going to fit in the fork. So there we go there. Just going to tighten it up. All right. Turns out I have to put on the other side of the bow so it fits better. And I'm going to keep twisting my single wrap. Here's a little piece that's kind of fraying out, so I'm going to incorporate that in a little bit better. Single wrapping it, twisting one way. All right. I got my eye of the bowstring, and I can add more fibers if I want, but as it turns out, there's enough cordage here to make an overhand knot. There we go. Put all those fibers through, and then the overhand knot goes in a reinforced split. I want to keep the tension on the fibers, so twist it a little bit. So there we go. Now I have a single wrap bowstring in here, and it should be strong enough and tight enough. There's its 45-degree angle. So this should work pretty nice for me. I'll burn it in. Do you see how things nicely fixed themselves once I started drilling? It's not a bad idea to dip this cordage in some water to keep it moist and flexible. It's kind of funny because I put some spruce resin in a Fatwood socket, so it's even more lubed. Nothing wrong with that. I'll cut the notch real quick. I feel that it's not good enough to drill for an ember. I think a bowstring should be strong enough to burn in a spindle / burn in a hole in a fireboard, or both, and then drill for an ember. I got the notch cut. Now it's time to make the ember. I added more spruce resin to the Fatwood. Well, that worked out pretty fast. This one's about half a pinky thick. I would like to get it wet a little bit, but that's how it worked out. That's looking real good. Let's blow it into flames. There's some flames. That's successful. I can get more. Fire burns up, so we'll let the fire burn up. That works. I'm convinced. Say, for instance, I wanted to make this string longer. Well, I already have the string started. I have my overhand knot on the end. I can start laying in extra fibers at the bottom, so I want to incorporate them. So this one kind of tapers off, so I'm going to lay that there. And this one kind of tapers off too. Tapers off. In other words, this is thicker and this is a little bit thinner. So I'm going to incorporate it that way. And I'm going to undo a little bit of the wrapping because I want the fibers to intermingle. Now that the fibers are intermingled, I'm going to keep twisting in one direction. And keeping attention. So all in one direction. That way the tension keeps everything tight, the bowstring from unraveling. Okay, you can see how the bowstring is getting larger. Now you might think, okay, this is a little bit ugly here. Of course. So I'm simply going to abrade this off with a rock because everything else is incorporated in there. There. That's better. A little bit extra here that needs to come off. That way my drilling is not interfered with. That's another successful video on a single wrap basswood bowstring. Now, this bowstring is starting to fray a little bit there. A piece is coming out, so take a rock, use the sharp edge, and abrade off the little piece. So now that's out of the way. Now my drilling is going to be that much better. So that's actually very nice. Keep on drilling.